Hey you, I'm Dave, and this is a paper Voltron sword that's as TV show accurate as possible, while also being as easy to build as possible, for anyone that downloads the free plans in the description. Now while it's fun to build, cool to look at, and really satisfying to swing in the air, I ended up wanting more for my son, a sword that would be even more like the one in the show. The real sword is about 175 feet long and made from quintessence-infused ore of a trans-reality comet, which is a material I couldn't find anywhere. Anywhere. But I could try and make it light up, increase durability, and even more fun to swing around in the air. Because air-related activities are the best. If you're wondering why I would do all this, we need to go back to when my son and I were watching episode after episode of the Voltron series on Netflix. I mean, what's not fun about a group of 5 giant robot lions combining to form an even bigger giant robot to fight the ultimate evils in the universe with its amazing blazing sword? That's pretty fun. And though it was easy to find the robot lion toys, the sword was a different story. There is one available that is child safe and didn't seem all that awesome to us. So I decided to make one for him. Things started with my friend Aaron taking reference images and creating a 3D model that I translated into flat artwork, printed on cardstock, carefully cut, and assembled with glue. It took us a few times of building, reviewing, and making changes before we got to the final design. The interesting thing was, the closer we got to a final design, the more other people wanted to play with it. Once the paper sword was finished, I used that as a starting point for the next version. The easiest way for me to begin a project is by sketching. It helps me think. Now my plans usually change along the way, which is an understatement, but drawing helps me get organized. A PVC tube is going to be used again, since it's strong, lightweight, and easy to work with. The blade will be acrylic, since that material can be lit up by placing a light source next to it. Acrylic can be heavy, so I'm using EVA foam and yoga blocks to keep the overall weight as low as possible. For lighting, I started with the brightest LEDs that wouldn't get hot when used, and then did the math to figure out how much power would be necessary. The amount of space the batteries needed wouldn't have fit, so I went with a power bank instead, and a step-up volt dongle thing that would supply the required voltage. A local supplier had a scrap piece of blue acrylic that was an exact color match, and also thin, which helped keep the weight down. For maximum brightness, a light source needs to be right next to a side edge of acrylic that is as smooth as possible. So for that and a perfect blade shape, I went to Andy and his laser cutter for help.
So Dave came to us with a project that involves a little bit of laser cutting. We're gonna cut a sword blade for Voltron with our laser. It sort of works like a reverse action air hockey table. Sucks the material down to the bed very hard so it can't move around. Gives us a really precise cutting edge. The heat of the laser actually also aids in creating a really nice glossy finish all the way around the perimeter of the cut.
Now that I had most of the parts far enough along, it was time to start assembling. Hit a bit of a snag. The acrylic and the LEDs are not working the way I thought they would. This did not glow to the level that I wanted it to. Did a bunch of different things with the LEDs. I doubled the LEDs. I did a bunch of different stuff to the acrylic, and long story short, I've exhausted the options of what I could do with what I have here. So I'm gonna take a step back, do some more research, talk to some more people, and see, what could I try? So the goal is still to have a blue light up blade. It might involve acrylic, it might involve LEDs, I don't know yet. But this isn't one of those projects where I'm running out of time or money or anything like that. So I'd rather keep on going and try different things so I don't have to wonder if I gave up and settled with something that I didn't want. The next time you will see me, hopefully, I will have a solution. It's been 6 months. The reason it's been that long, well, 2 reasons. The first one is I got to spend a lot of time with my friend Jim. We worked on a Star Wars Boba Fett short film. Depending on when you're watching this video, you can either see the trailer or the whole thing. A lot of fun, and it took a lot of time. The other thing is I spent a lot of time learning as much as I could about acrylic and lighting it and all those other things. And
Long story short, the way I was trying to do it before, it was never going to work the way I wanted it to work. The type of lights, the blue acrylic, it wasn't going to transmit as much as I wanted it to. I'm glad I took the time to step back and learn more and then try again with a different approach. And that's where we are now. This acrylic I found is specifically made for lighting and to be as bright as possible. It's especially in the edge. And so I'm still a little concerned with the lighting on the tips on the front and the back, just because there aren't going to be LEDs right up against that part of the acrylic. Where I landed was, I want this to look as cool as possible as a Voltron sword. While I could redesign it, it wouldn't look like a Voltron sword anymore. And I also did some tests with aluminum tape, and I'm going to put some aluminum tape on edges so that the light bounces and everything is as bright as it can be and still look like a Voltron sword. You may have noticed that this acrylic isn't blue, and the Voltron sword blade is blue. I'm going to be putting a specific transparent blue vinyl on one side of the acrylic, and that will get the blade color exactly in line with the Voltron color palette without affecting the lighting. So that's what's been going on.
After that, the rest of the build was pretty easy. Just needed to finish the foam parts, the electrical wiring, placing the power button, a magnetic panel door for the power bank housing, preparing and applying the vinyl to the acrylic, attaching the LEDs, putting all the parts together, filling in gaps, a little bit of sanding, sealing the foam, painting all the colors, and finally a sealer to give it some protection and a consistent shine. And all done! And while this took a while, I'm really happy with where we ended up. The tips are bright, just not as bright as the middle, which I figured could happen, and at some point I might try and build this again. We'll see. For now, it's ready to swing around. Now, usually at this point in an episode, we surprise someone, and it's really fun. But my son has always known that this project was in the works. However, I recently heard Adam Savage mention that when he builds stuff, he will sometimes make multiple. So if he makes a mistake on one, he doesn't have to start all the way over. And he might end up having extras. For him, making multiple of something didn't seem to take that much more time, which I thought was really interesting, and I wanted to see if that could be true for me too. So I ended up making 2 swords. And for the most part, the second one didn't end up doubling the amount of time or effort. In fact, the second sword would give me a self-esteem boost, because I would usually be struggling with a way to move forward with the first sword. And after figuring out a step, doing it again for the second sword took so much less time and was so much easier. It would almost look like I knew what I was doing. So now I just need to figure out what to do with the second sword.
It's terrifying.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. But for now, I have 2 Voltron swords. Well, hey, you saw this guy, right?
Yeah.
I figured you saw this, but what I don't think you've seen is this guy.
Oh, what?
My question is, do you want it?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Great. Then all I need you to do is say Voltron Legendary Defender really loud. And like, I know you're not a yeller, but like loud for you.
Voltron Legendary Defender. What? 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 Oh, man. That's awesome.
And then there should be a button. It's right by the handle.
Oh, man.
Whoa! You're such a nerd.
Thanks, Jess.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I remember it being really big, but ah, gosh. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, thank you.
I gotta figure out where I can swing this without hitting a ceiling. That is pretty freaking dope. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, my
Thanks for
pleasure.
making that.
It was fun.
Whenever it's possible, I try to have new techniques, or new tools, or new materials in a project because they're great opportunities for me to grow my abilities. This project had more challenges than usual, but it was still a lot of fun. And now we're thinking about making Voltron's head and wings too. But what do you think? Let us know in the comments what and who you'd like to see us build something for. Regardless, grow the unique skills that you've been given and make for others.